I'm probably kind of biased. I think this is probably one of the best things to talk about here. So, um, at the core of what we're talking about in terms of patient consumers is really, I think, what fuels a lot of the folks there that are in the audience and online. And that's what we bring to the table in the innovation process. And when we talk about the power of patient consumers, what we're talking about is the combination of our insights, our sense of urgency, and our idealism. That's what creates demand. And in our consistent polling at the American Association of Kidney Patients, what we always see is this, that the idea that people want to share their experience. So consistently what we see with patients when we ask them about what drives their interest in helping others, it's really a sense of idealism. And this has been consistent in our polling for the past several years. And we actually think it's what fuels the demand. It's essentially our lived experiences and our insights and having suffered. We don't want other people to go through the same thing. And so what we try to do is we try to capture that. And I think we've done a very good job at it as an advocacy community. And I think it's important right here to stop and say, what are all the things that we ought to celebrate as an advocacy community with our allies about what has changed for patients? And what has already changed is this idea that patient care choice is a revolutionary principle. So essentially, fundamental things have changed on the terrain for patient advocates over the course of about the past 10 years. Chief among them is patient care choice as a principle and a revolutionary ideal. And for patients, having a choice means that we are actively involved in the marketplace and that our seat at the table is on par with doctors and researchers and insurers and government officials, because our voice matters disproportionately in many ways, but most importantly, it's an equal voice at the table. And so what has that driven? What it's driven is a tremendous amount of work by the FDA and NIH to make certain that the science of patient insights is brought forward as an actual science, that patient involvement is encouraged in clinical trials and in pre-decisional formats like the Kidney Health Initiative. And there's been an embrace of patients and their experiences that has been noticed and respected now by other government agencies, by academics, by pharma, by device and diagnostic makers. And what you have now is a golden era of medicine that's taking place, because people recognize that without those insights, they're not going to be able to develop the technologies and solutions that are most important to the patient consumer. Because again, we have a voice in the process, but we also bring with us the dollars that are driven by what we ask our insurers, and also as taxpayers, what we expect CMS to pay for. So in this golden era, what will it take to keep moving things across the finish line, as has been referenced earlier? And I think one of the things that has made the difference, in addition to proactive allies in government, is the fact that now patient consumers and patient advocates have in their hands the same types of technologies that 5, 10, and 15 years ago were running American political campaigns. Just off of your cell phone, you can be engaged 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So while it's important to fly into Washington, D.C. on one day and go up and give your view to Congress, now patients can actually impact every single node of the innovation pipeline. And those are research, it's innovation, it's capital markets and investors. They are policy decisions, they are regulatory decisions, and they are payment decisions. And when you take a look at all these different nodes along the way in innovation, what's important to see is how many victories we've actually had in every single one of those. In research now, patients are co-investigators, they are co-authors. Our insights are sought out, not just by government agencies, but they're sought out by innovation leaders and companies, and they are also sought out by researchers in the academic environment. It's no longer acceptable to check off the box and say you talk to a patient. Now there's the entire entity called PCORI, which actually drives research decisions based on patient engagement with a lot of different advocacy groups. AAKP is one of them. There are many, NKF, but the patients are clearly being incorporated more. And those are major victories. We also have a strong voice now to be able to call out things related to disparities, whether it's disparities in research or if it's disparities in lack of outreach in clinical trials. But either way, we have a voice, and now we have a greater responsibility to make an impact. When you look in the area of policy, just in the past 10 years, what patient advocates and allies working together have been able to achieve. In 2013, we achieved HIV positive to HIV positive organ transplants. In 2018, we achieved the victory of having the U.S. Department of Labor include living donors under the Family Medical Leave Act. There's still more to be done with legislation, but the fact that in 2018 we had FMLA extended to living donors is a major achievement. In 2019, we had the Advancing American Kidney Health Executive Order that was done. It was bipartisan. It reflected much of the work that the Obama administration had done. But the fact is that executive order said we were going to go further upstream. We were going to have more people go home, and that we were going to envision a day when we had artificial implantable organs. All three of those elements of that executive order were a direct challenge to status quo kidney care, and they were welcomed by patients because we worked on that executive order as a team with government officials and with researchers. Then in 2020, you had immunosuppressive drugs passed, major piece of accomplishment for the community that had been fought for 20 years. But what's undeniable in this is that we've demonstrated the ability to achieve policy victories without having to wait for government to come to us. We've brought our arguments to government and we have won. The same thing we are now exercising in the area of capital markets and investments. ASN has done a tremendous job bringing patients to the table to talk to investors, and other groups are doing it too. But the federal government is standing up in this arena through the Federal Trade Commission. As they watch consolidations in the kidney community and in the kidney industry, they are coming to patient advocates, and we're working side by side with the FTC, giving our opinion of what we think consolidations would mean to the future of innovation and to the future of patient care. And then when you go along the spectrum and you take a look at the regulatory node, FDA, I think, deserves an absolute salute from every single patient in the United States and every family. Anyone that has anything to do with kidney medicine should thank the FDA for leaning forward, not just simply in the area of regulatory decisions, but their incorporation of patient insights formally in the process. This has been done to a tremendous degree by the Center for Devices and Radiological Health, but it's also occurring in other formats. In the programs that FDA administers, patient representative programs, in the advisory committees, they lean forward to incorporate patients, and they're also working with industry to say, hey, this is a step that you must take. You must talk to patients up front. It's the smart thing to do within the process. We're very optimistic about the regulatory process that's underway. But in taking a look at from bookend to bookend in the innovation process, we see one of the greatest threats to innovation in the kidney space on the payment side. And we launched yesterday a campaign called Patient Voice, Patient Choice. And the concern of ours is that in that payment space, you have many different players. You have the federal government through CMS. Those are your taxpayer dollars. You also have the Federal Employee Health Benefit Program, which is the largest benefit program in the United States in healthcare. They have a say in the process in terms of what gets approved and not approved and what access is given to kidney medicines. And then you also have the realm of private insurers, some of which are great actors and some of which need to learn the burden that patients have. Richard Knight did a tremendous service to the kidney community and to patients just a month ago when he was on Capitol Hill at a format and called out a bad actor, an insurance company that was not going to lean forward in the area of diabetic kidney disease. Even though there's a safe FDA-approved therapeutic, some insurance companies are not covering it. So what does that mean if you have diabetes? Well, you're not going to get the ideal care from that insurer. You could actually progress to a worse state because of your lack of access. And that's why for us, as patient advocates, we know our role, and our role is perfectly appropriate in the area of what gets paid for in terms of innovation. Because of all the great things that you've heard there today and yesterday at IDEAS, you've heard it from Bill Fissell, you've heard it from Buddy Ratner, you've heard it from so many different people. But if you bring something all the way through that spectrum and all those nodes of influence, and then you get to the point where you want to enter the marketplace and you want to serve patients with a new product and it does not get paid for, that's a problem. That's not only a problem for patients in terms of the burden that they've had, but it's also a burden to the American taxpayer. Because if you can't access a therapeutic, a diagnostic, or a device that forestalls or better serves you as a patient and helps you better manage your disease, and kind of what's the point of it all? And so what we're going to be doing as an advocacy organization is spending much more time on this issue of the alignment of payment and the approval of safe new innovations in the kidney space. And that includes new technologies for dialysis, new artificial implantable technologies, and as it goes through the regulatory process, safe recommendations for xenotransplantation. But we do believe that this is a very important time in the United States and around the world. And the patients around the world are the ones that have been watching and listening. No great surprise to us, because disease and how you manage it and suffering is a universal condition. But we've been so very pleased by patients all over the world who have come not just to IDEARS, but to other formats that are out there, by the International Society of Nephrology, by our great friends in Europe through the European Kidney Health Alliance, and the European Kidney Patient Federation. There are patients all over the world that are looking for inspiration and examples of what can be done, and we are providing those. In our case, in 2018, we presented at the United Nations. AAKP had an opportunity created by the Rogosin Institute. And as optimistic as it was to look out in the audience and see so many patients that were suffering, it was so very pessimistic to listen to one particular presenter say that, instead of allowing people access to more kidney treatments, maybe we ought to start thinking about the hard decisions that have to be made about the lack of resources. And perhaps, some of these patients shouldn't get the therapeutics or shouldn't have access because it was a burden on their country. We view it the other way around. Through technology and innovation, that's promise. That's promise to save lives. So we should do more on the innovation side and not the restriction side. And we came out of that meeting in 2018 and we started AAKP Global. And we really pushed forward on that in partnership with George Washington University and a fantastic person that you heard earlier, Dominic Raj, who's our co-chair for a conference we do on global innovations. Last year, that conference had representation in 80 countries. This year, we believe we'll hit over 100 countries. These are universal themes that we work on. But as you've heard, there is a international collaboration that's coming together, a consortium, and it's going to be led by patients. It's going to be led by patients who want to see more therapeutics, more drugs, and more devices put into the space, and things that reduce suffering. And we think that's a great thing. And it will come out of fantastic events like IDEARS Summit. It will come out of other summits around the world. But in order to advance things across the spectrum for innovation, I think it's really time that patients work even more closely together with researchers, with medical professionals, and our allies, because we can get it done. But to think that one person can do it or one company can do it, or that patients are going to sit and simply be spectators, that's old thinking, and those days are over. We are the solution, we're the answer, and we know it. And we're happy to work with everyone that's in the innovation arena and that has the courage. One final thought here. As patients, we embrace the civil servants that work for the United States, and hats off and full respect to everyone who serves their country and serves their patients in the name of the United States. So thank you very much for allowing me to be with you. Thank you.